Welcome back to the Lantern Rouge Cycling Podcast, our weekly show brought to you by Join Cycling, our show partner for the whole of the last 2 years. We have Paris-Roubaix, sort of some news roundup out of there, people going to jail that deserve to go to jail, the medical bulletin, the juniors and U23s, of course, the Basque Country wrap-up, which finished last week, as well as Scheldeprijs. And then race previews. We've got Brabants coming up on Friday, where a certain Remco Evenepoel returns to racing. Then Amstel Gold Race, Ronde van Limburg. It's all in Luke's hometown, more or less, except 2 of those 3 races are actually in Belgium. And, of course, then the French races on the weekend, which I love, Besançon-Girardot. So we'll have all those previews. A lot of racing. And but before we get into that, Benji, the Paris-Roubaix news roundup.
Yes, we got to talk about a lot of stuff around Paris-Roubaix. Lots of injuries, which is logical in a race where a lot of crashes happen, and the likes of Ballerini with a fractured wrist. Pretty sure there was a moment in the race where Soigneur stepped on the road and then realized, I'm on the road, but wasn't looking at the riders, then goes back off the road, but in doing so still, Ballerini hitting him, avoids crashing. That didn't cause his fractured wrist, but a bit later, after he had a mechanical, he tries to get back to the peloton, crashes, and, well, it was unfortunately on the wrist for Ballerini. So, great season so far, actually, Ballerini, better than I expected in the Classic. So, that was unfortunate to see that he fractured his wrist. Moro was one of the first riders to crash for Movistar in the race. He fractured some part of his hand, clearly not a doctor, so I'm not going to explain what metacarpal and so forth means. Aiko Bastiaans, who was involved in the Wout van Aert crash early on in the race, suffered a fracture. I only saw suffered a fracture, so that's pretty vague. Don't know which part of the body. Let's hope it's an easy-to-heal part of the body. Julius van den Berg also broke his collarbone, and we had a bit of an odd crash in the convoy. We had, basically, Paris-Roubaix is chaotic. Lots of stuff happens in the race. Lots of team cars in the convoy. The convoy is basically all the team cars behind the peloton. And when there's a mechanical, on paper, the rule, I'm not sure if it's a written rule, but the rule is that a rider goes to the left side of the road, right, to get his mechanical fix instead of the right side of the road?
No, right side.
Wait. Yes, correct. I was looking at from the front of the camera.
In Australia, you always see, I remember in TDU, so many riders were coming to the wrong side of the team car.
Yeah.
And they're like going for the bid on, and the driver's on the other side, they're like, hold on. Hold on.
As a viewer, it's the left side, though. So that's the...
Yes, as a viewer, the left side, yes. Yeah, the side you drive on is the side you go to the side on.
Yeah, correct. We've got the Visma Leasebike car on the right side of the road. We've got a rider in front of that car that is getting a bike change, and the mechanic was, let's be honest, a bit inattentive or panicked, probably, because of all the shit that was happening in Paris-Roubaix. He goes, changes bike, runs back to the car. It's a very narrow road, runs next to the car, and didn't anticipate any other riders coming through the parkour, which he probably should have, to be honest. That's a mistake by that mechanic, but I do feel like there's a bit of a feeling that it is an understandable mistake, in my personal opinion, because it's so chaotic in Paris-Roubaix. But in doing so, he actually ends up crashing Sylvain Dillier, who, I've heard some reports he has a fractured hand. I feel like I translated it myself to no fracture in the hand, but let's hope it's no fracture in the hand. I'm not sure, though. And then the last name on the list here that I have is Christoph ending up hitting his head. This is a story from Wielerflits, and riding in the wrong direction of the parkour for a while, which, that's crazy. Like, hit his head so hard that he probably had a concussion, most likely, because riding in the wrong direction is pretty concussion symptomy to me, and eventually ends up seeing a couple of riders coming his way, and he's like, okay, I should probably turn around. And then he stepped out of the race at the next feed zone. So it's good that he left the race relatively early. In an ideal world, he doesn't continue. But yeah, you can't expect a rider who hit his head so hard that he's riding the wrong way to be in the right mind to step out of the race. But that being said, this is a list of injuries. Is it weird to say that it's kind of a reasonable amount, that I expected more?
I think it's incomplete as well, though.
Okay.
These are all the riders that have been notified in the media, or there's videos, etc. I think there's loads of riders with a broken hand, maybe even a collarbone, or just general crash soreness who we don't know about yet. And because the teams, I also don't know why necessarily teams publicize about every injury. I understand it for like Pogacar and Vingegaard or Remco, like to give a timeline, but
I prefer if they do. I'd like a more transparent sport because it makes our job easier. Like, the more the teams publish about injuries, the more we are aware of what the form of each rider is towards a race. Obviously, from a team perspective, you might want to hide that a little bit. You might want to be like, okay, let's hypothetically, if we shut up about the fact that Vingegaard had a concussion after Paris, stuff like that, then maybe one, we might not get criticized about it, and two, the opponents might not think about that in the first place as something that weakened his preparation towards the Tour de France. They might not think they have a 1-0 on the scoreboard in the preparation. So a couple of angles there, but I'd rather not enter that phase of the sport. Does it make sense?
I for Vingegaard and those guys, you have to be transparent because everyone's asking what's going on. But I think if a guy say, he has an injury, and then first of all, within a day of the or 2 days of the injury, you don't know what's going to be the case. Like, you can give a prognosis for, he can be back in whatever amount of time, but he could improve quicker, he could get worse. And so then you've put you put it out there, and then it's like, what if he improves quicker? Well, then you said then people are like, why is he racing so quick? What if he gets worse? People are like, what's going on? Because that's like with like Jan Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just been able to come back under his own timeline, from what I can see. And it's anyway, I don't know. I'm sleepy, by the way. But yeah, you're right. You're right, Benji. Like, I have to say, I agree with you. My sentiment was that it was a relatively safe Roubaix in terms of there was not like the horror Fred Wright Arenberg style crash of a few years ago.
Except the Bidon Gate. We got to talk about Bidon Gate because lots have been spoken about Bidon Gate. Mathieu van der Poel had piss thrown at him in the past, has been spit at E3, for example, this year. And a little bit of an update there. Nieuwsblad reports that the E3 spitter has been fined €360. In Belgium, we call that a gasboete, which I don't know why it's called gas. Gas, basically, is the translation of that. I think GAS probably means something different in abbreviation, but it stands for like public nuisance fine or something. I think it relates to. So I don't know. It's a €360 fine.
Isn't it assault?
I think so too. I would have liked a little bit more than a €360 fine.
If you spit on someone in Australia or England, it's assault.
Welcome to Belgium. It's allowed here. It's
in Belgium. It's foreplay.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I was surprised to see this public news site because he either did it or he didn't. And then if he did do it, that's kind of maybe he missed, and then it's not assault. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not a Belgian civil law lawyer, but you're right.
That he didn't miss.
It's a low fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
For spitting at an athlete.
But the Bidon throw now, which Van der Poel said after the race that he didn't necessarily know what hit his face until after the race, but that it felt heavier than in just an empty bidon. So that probably was a properly filled bidon. So that's quite heavy. That's like a rock being thrown at your face at 55 kilometers per hour. So that is something that could cause crashes, could lead to a career-ending crash, worst case scenario. So that is possible. We got to keep that in mind. This is not just like, I don't know, blowing at someone. I don't know, like, this is a serious form of assault, in my opinion. And it later came out, I think Nieuwsblad reported that the perpetrator, the bidon thrower, as they named the criminal, has reported himself, or has, how do you say that? Giving himself in?
Yeah, turned himself in.
He turned himself into the West Flemish police, I'm pretty sure, I think. So it's a West Flemish person. I, as a West Flemish person, distance myself from this West Flemish person. His identity is unknown, and I think that's okay. I don't think there needs to be a public witch hunt next to the private witch hunt. I'm glad he's been identified. I think Alpecin has reportedly filed a complaint, an official, like, I don't know if it's a suing, but like whatever it's called, at the police as well. So I think that's a good step, because ASO didn't ride. I swear there was an article in L'Equipe where ASO basically said that the race wasn't interrupted, so we don't feel like reporting a complaint, which is a bit of a what do you call that? Like an icy
A slippery
edge where you can
slope,
slip.
yeah.
Yes, a slippery slope.
But yeah, I mean, so can he be extradited to Northeast France?
What?
Well, because
I
he
don't
turned
know.
himself into the West Flemish police, but the race happened in France. I don't know how it's all
Yeah.
going to work. I think Alpecin, it's a Belgian team who has their employee or whoever riding for them, and he was assaulted by a West Flemish person. So probably the police will. I mean, if I'm Alpecin, I go for a civil claim, like to. Oh, yeah, right, Benji. What if you crash there? Not only do you lose Roubaix, you could break a bone, you could really hurt yourself riding 50 kph. So I think Alpecin are right to take action and should, if Van der Poel doesn't want to do it himself. And especially if the Spitter gets 360 euros, then maybe you, as Alpecin, you need to drive it a bit more yourself. Because it's not the first, it keeps happening. So it's not the first time, it's not the second time. It happens at the cyclocross to Van der Poel. Now it's happened at Roubaix a couple of times. Cap incident 50-50.
And like, what's the solution here? Because the people do get identified relatively quickly based on what we've seen in the last year, so that's a good thing. But if the Spitzer only gets 360 euro fine, this guy hopefully gets a little bit more. I know he shows regret and I know he's sorry about it, but that doesn't change that he's done it in the first place. It still happened. So I expect some kind of penalty for the guy, some kind of punishment, a proper one, not just 360 euro fine. And if we don't disincentivize this from happening in the first place, then there's always going to be some crazy dude that might have drunk too much that ends up doing stuff like this. And I'm quite anti-alcohol. I don't drink. And I do think there's an element of these people being drunk while they do it, but that's not an excuse for your actions either, you know?
no, it's not exactly. Like if you get drunk and misbehave, you're still responsible for your actions. I don't know, maybe Alpecin need to strike a deal or something with El Salvador, and then these people go to prison there too. So that could be the solution. Then people won't be throwing shit at Van der Poel anymore. Because it's only a matter of time until someone takes it. It's escalating. A cap, a bit of water, spitting, now objects being thrown at him. What next? It's ridiculous.
As a Belgian man, I'd like to think Belgians aren't inherently hating on Mathieu van der Poel. It's only a small minority that takes it too far. But why is it always Mathieu van der Poel in these cases? Because it's not his fault, you know?
Because he's Dutch and he wins all the big classics.
But he's basically Belgian, guys.
Yeah.
Doesn't he live here?
Yeah, I don't know
if he does.
but he's Dutch. And he's stopping. Yeah. So they don't want him to win.
There's not even a rivalry between Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert. Sorry, but it's not a rivalry on the road. In CX, it might have been. But on the road, there's no rivalry. They're completely different riders.
Yeah, I mean, the scoreboard says what it says. Like, what is it?
Especially classics.
9 monuments and counting or something for Van der Poel. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't happen again. And there's strong action taken by whoever is the appropriate party to do so. Paris-Roubaix under-23s was dominated by Little Trek Future Racing. Albert Philipsen was solo up the road. They played the numbers. He was in a group with Soderfist. And then Soderfist, I understand, counted across to him when he felt like it, when it was safe to do so, after the others were worn out. And they crossed the line hand in hand.
Ooh.
Giving the win to Albert Philipsen. And so
Who
Trek
decided
dominated that? Who decided it?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Philipsen's paid more.
Hell, the World Tour helpers are complaining about it, so of course he must be paid quite a bit.
It's
That being
Denmark
said,
and
Söderqvist,
Danish and Swedish relations. Like, what's going on?
diplomacy's going up after this event, I feel like. Or unless Sweden is unhappy after this event, then we might see tariffs from Sweden to Denmark as a follow-up of this. Because there's a bit of a Paris-Roubaix deficit here. That's for sure.
Yeah, maybe Philipsen's got to help Soderqvist win.
Yeah. Well, I think they probably will at some point in their career because they're both extremely good riders. We still don't know exactly what an Albert Philipsen is because he's so versatile. We've seen him do really well on the likes of Wollongong Hill in a World Tour race. Then he goes to Paris-Roubaix U23. Should that be allowed? You've ridden a World Tour race. I know he's U23, but it's a bit weird, no?
I mean, he's so young. He's literally a first-year U23 rider, and like, it's TDU, so I don't want to have the blanket rule.
Okay.
I think Soderquist doing Paris-Roubaix U23s is outrageous, I gotta say. He's fucking 90 kegs and 22, and he's literally been like the best rouleur in shoulder press on Wednesday. So, and then they don't let him win it, and he can't do it anymore. So, I don't know.
Would it? This is maybe blasphemy. It wouldn't be better for the sport, but would it be fairer if every rider was forced to ride in their own race category? So that if you're U23, you wouldn't be allowed to ride with the elite.
That's some American college like stuff. That's that.
It would suck for the sport.
Imagine seeing Remco 20 forced to ride LBL U23s, win by 17 minutes. No,
mate. Brennan would be riding the U23, right?
For the next 3 years, in 3 years, Brennan could. In 3 years, he could finally peak for Roubaix under 23. That's real entertainment. So no, that's not the solution. But no, it just is what it is. Teams have their own choices, and so the reality is, Soderquist is still a young rider who's he was on a club team in 2023. So, but yeah, what do you think Philipsen is?
He's just very versatile right now. I think he's definitely a solid classics rider. We've seen that already. He's won. Isn't he the guy that won so many different disciplines? Like he won mountain bike,
yes,
cyclocross, and road juniors, or because he crashed in Worlds. Road,
yeah,
right?
he won juniors in his first year, the World Championships.
So he's definitely versatile across the board in that sense. He got the skill level of the CXs and the mountain bikers. On road cycling, he's already shown his level. I don't necessarily see the GC rider yet because I still have to see that blossom. I just see a very good, versatile, punchy classics rider that might be able to survive the hill classics a little bit.
I think, yeah, Amstel Gold Race, those type of races look really, really good for him. Maybe Tour of Flanders. I don't see why not. He's also quite explosive, so good handling, one would assume, from mountain bike. Can survive a really hard 6-7 minute climb like he did in TDU. So he looks like an all-round superstar, which is what he is billed as. In the juniors, Hector Alvarez also crashed, which is a shame. The young Spanish classics talent also on Little Trek. So Trek had a very strong team that would be a leader on all the other teams. Hector Alvarez still crashed, and they came 1-2. Paris-Roubaix juniors, Michel Morris won ahead of Ashlyn Barry. I think Morris went solo, and then Barry won the group sprint, or the sprint behind.
Is Maurice family of Jens and that dude on Unibet? Jens Maurice?
Yeah, Jens Morris and his brothers Wessel Morris.
Okay. I don't remember these guys much outside of their name, but I would like that would be pretty funny if Unibet is the one to pick up Michiel Maurice after a victory in Paris-Roubaix juniors. I'm not sure that's happening. I assume that a lot of other big teams are wanting that man on his dev team after this, especially because he's riding for the Grenke Auto Eder team, I'm pretty sure, which is the old school Auto Eder Bayer, which is the junior team of Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, that pipeline. And they've now got the U23 part as well, right?
Yeah, the Red Bull rookies started this year, I think. So yeah, they have the full pipeline from juniors to U23 all the way to the world team. And yeah, Morris probably will be going to the Red Bull rookies, I dare say, being on that feeder team. That would make a lot of sense. In terms of Itzulia, I think just do a quick recap. Caleb Ewan won the first sprint stage without... Yeah, it was a good idea to send him there. Ineos had a good train. He won it easily. And then he dipped out. He dipped out. I mean, listen, World Tour wins don't grow on trees, and that was worth it. It was worth it. Aaron Baru won stage 3. He got, I don't want to come back to that and talk about that a little bit more. He got disqualified and won again. Almeida won stage 4 and was the strongest rider in the race by far. He went solo on Azure, very aggressive descent, very impressive. Healy won stage 5 from the breakaway and looks to be in very good shape before the Ardennes. And then Almeida went on the attack on stage 6 and won the stage in GC to really show that he was indeed the best rider in the race by far, and takes his... He's now won 4 World Tour races this year, so he's winning at a much higher clip than before.
Is this his first World Tour stage race at UAE?
It is indeed first at any level stage race victory at UAE. His last stage race victory was in Polonia 21 on Quickstep.
Whew. And like, I gotta say, before this race started, I thought to myself, this parkour is so anti-Almeida. It turns out, if there's no real competition for him, then he can still win regardless. And he didn't miss the splits this time around on like the medium mountain stages. There was one moment, I think, on the maybe stage 3 where he was caught behind for a little bit, eventually was able to get back to the front of the race, which is where that Aramburu gate happened. The whole crazy chaos around that I'm muffled to speak about by Mr. Patrick Bro. And it's good to see Almeida win a stage race. And I feel like with Almeida, we've seen a first victory in something open the floodgates a little bit. So it wouldn't shock me if he goes to Romandy and is fighting for the GC victory again. Wouldn't shock me if he goes to Tour de Suisse and is fighting for the GC victory again, despite the Tour de Suisse parkour being pretty shit from my memory.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's as good for him as it was last year, where there was about 17 uphill finishes, although there is a mountain TT where he would beat everybody if Adam Yates is not there. So, or even if Adam Yates is there. So I think, yeah, it looks pretty good for him. Winning more races, and indeed, if he's going to be a domestique of the Tour de France, he wants to win as much as possible as a leader in these prestigious 1 week races before he has to do that. But before we talk about Aramburu, I know Benji won't want to hear this. Just a word on our show partner, Join Cycling. I think what is a misnomer, and is what I've noticed with Join Cycling's training programs, is, and I've spoken to Jim about this, the founder of Join Cycling, is that we hear so much about polarized training versus pyramidal training versus other training systems or methodologies, etc. And we had the Join Cycling Masterclass series at the end of last year in the off season where we went into this in detail. What was interesting to me was the Join Cycling training plans, then they're agnostic to those. Okay, the longer, if you have more hours in the week, more availability, higher level, the programs will naturally be more polarized because you just have more hours in the week. If you are somebody who's doing 4 to 6 hours a week, it's naturally going to look a bit more pyramidal in that you're going to do a bit more as a proportion of your overall training intensity or sort of medium hard riding because you're not training as much throughout the week. And it of course depends on the training plan that you pick. I just mean in general. And that was something really, really interesting to me, and also good because sometimes I thought, I've only got 6-7 hours this week. Should I really be just noodling along, just doing then 5 hours of zone 2? I mean, it's better than nothing, of course, but and the answer when even doing a recovery plan is no. You still need to press on the pedals a little bit, even when you're doing 5-6 hours a week. So there's plans for everybody, whether you're a beginner, whether you're an intermediate rider, whether you're an advanced rider. And I'd suggest scroll through the plans and see what takes your fancy. There's something for everybody, and and give it a try for a month with the free trial, and then I'm sure you'll see improvement, and then you'll be hooked like me and Benji have been. But Aramburu, Benji, sorry to bring this back to him. So on the final set, on the stage 3, Aramburu, by the way, best level in a long time in this Basque country, his home race. He's in a group. He attacks Almeida on the descent. He gets away. He's with Almeida, or just ahead of them. He's attacked, and they're just behind him, 2 seconds behind him. Last maybe 1,200 meters, 1,500 meters to the finish. They're close to him. They're chasing him, and there's a diversion around. There's a roundabout. 2 ways you can go around it. The right-hand side is blocked. It is well signaled. 2 marshals. Big yellow banner. This is how I see it. In the road book, and well, not just the road book, that's not enough. On VeloViewer, which is actually what the GPX file, the official GPX file sent to the teams and riders, studied by the teams and riders, in the GPX file on VeloViewer, it said you go right around the roundabout. But the diversion was the left side. Aaron Baru, in my opinion, sees them and deliberately goes through the barriers because he had studied it and he knew it was the fastest line and didn't want to break and then tapped his head at the finish because he said, I read the road book. And then after the race, he was disqualified because he did not follow the marked thing. And then he was undisqualified some hours later after a protest about what was on VeloViewer.
Objection, Your Honor. I object. I gotta say, I went through a roller coaster of things here. I think a lot of people listening to this podcast will be like, Benji, we don't care about your opinion on this. You're fucking biased. You love Aramburu.
So biased.
Shut up, Patrick. Shut up. I would like to display my lack of bias in this situation by my reaction throughout. First of all, I said, whoa, Aramburu won. Wow. When he got disqualified, I said, rightfully disqualified. It's fair that he's disqualified for going off route, taking a shortcut around a blocked off roundabout on paper. For me, it changes when it's in the road book and on VeloViewer, because that's when I switch sides again. That's when, in my opinion, if it's in the road book and on VeloViewer, wait. Don't get your objections ready yet, Patrick. I'll hit your objections right in the face here. If Aramburu goes to the right because it's in the road book and in VeloViewer, there's no way to prove that he intentionally went to the right side of the roundabout. That is just impossible to prove. So I'd like to see a benefit of the doubt of the man studied. He lives in the area. He studied this final because he wanted to try to win the stage. He followed the road book, following the right side of the roundabout instead of the left side. And in doing so, he did what probably his DS might be shouting in his ears as well. Next roundabout, go to the right, stuff like that. We hear that all the time in cycling. So, in my opinion, that's not a mistake of the organizers. Now, I hear you already thinking, Patrick. I hear you thinking. I hear the gears in your head rolling and saying, but Benji, what if there's a meteor shower on the right side of the roundabout? And that's why the organizers blocked it off. Well, if there's a safety issue, if there's an actual reason why there's a change from the road book, that it needs to be communicated from the organizers to the teams, and then it's the responsibility of the teams and the riders. And I think that's where it failed. Because the organization then came in and said, we made the mistake of making it the wrong side of the roundabout.
Yeah, because he's Basque.
No, wait. UCI commissaire was French. So technically Gregoire was in the benefit here.
Yeah, but the commissaire initially DQ'd him. And then some hours later, a lot of pressure came from somewhere.
Well, no. In my opinion, it is on the organization to make sure that the actual reality on the road is the same as in the road book. And if it's not, it's on them, the responsibility to communicate it.
100%.
And if they fail to do so, then I don't see how a rider that follows the road book should be punished.
Oh,
and
but there
I'm saying
I disagree.
a rider...
I disagree.
Oh.
Two
Okay.
wrongs do not make a right. So yes, the organizer should, but Benji, did he see that he had to go left on the road?
That is impossible to say.
He had full visibility and saw it. All the other riders were able to do it at the same speed, and he deliberately chose not to. And for me, what if there's a spectator standing behind that diversion and he goes bang straight into them, or a car right there and hurts
Then
himself?
the organization made a mistake.
No, because they fully signaled and marshaled that he had to go left, and he
The wrong
deliberately...
side of roundabout.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, there's a cascading order of like a hierarchy of what you have to follow. And when there's
Is there officially?
Yeah, surely. You have to follow the marked course on the road.
In this entire event, I have not seen a single person speak
you have
about
to follow the course
an
that's marked.
on-paper hierarchy.
Yeah, the hierarchies, the rules say you have to follow the marked course. There isn't an exemption that says, but if you were really good and studied on VeloViewer and there was a little difference, you're allowed to just go off the course.
No, there is a specific rule in the road book that the riders must know the route and have followed the road book.
Yeah,
That's
but
my interpretation of it. But
you have to follow the marked course, and he deliberately didn't because he thought he was being smart, and that is a very bad precedent that you can just go off the course because in case, what if they haven't had time to communicate something and they've set it up? So I think he should have been disqualified, to be honest.
I believe you can't disqualify a rider because the organization made a mistake. But I understand that if there's no time to communicate, that this precedent can lead to issues. So if there's no cascading hierarchy yet, there should become one pretty clear. Because I don't know of one actually properly existing. Because you need to follow the marked course. There's also one where the riders must have studied the course beforehand. So it kind of talks against each other. So I think there's issues in the rules as well.
I think it's clear.
Fight me over this on Wii Boxing, my friend.
I think if he wasn't Basque, then I'm not sure it would have happened the way it did, but sometimes that helps. Anyway, he probably would have won regardless. That was the funny thing. If he just went left, he would have won anyway. So he cost himself with his big brain move.
What do you think? People watching, go to the YouTube comment section, drop it below. Say, I agree with Patrick. Well, don't say that. Don't say that. Say, I agree with Benji. And just ignore the Patrick side, right? That's the thing we're saying, right?
Romain Gregoire, who was given the win and then had the win taken away, was like, what's going on? He's like, what's going on? And this happens to him. It happened in Fourn Ardèche. They went the wrong way.
Yes.
He won. And he was second behind Ganna in Algarve when everyone else went. Romain Gregoire does the right thing. I know who I'm following in the race.
Following Ganna, who didn't get the victory, which that looks even worse.
Exactly. Like, how can you not give Ganna the win then, Benji?
Well, we were advocating for the Ganna win, so you can't attack me for that.
I'm going to attack you, yeah. This is
okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
No,
again.
The Basque commissaire, under your logic,
it's a French commissaire.
Under your and Aaron Brew's logic, Jordi Meyer should get the win, right? In Algarve.
Because he was sprinting next to the road. It wasn't in the road book.
Because it was the quickest way.
That's not what I said. I said it was because it was in the road book, not because it was the quickest way. Meyer sprinting on a parallel road next to the fucking race. He's probably...
Jordi Meyer seeing a woman with a pram. He's like, that looks... seems correct.
Unironically, Jordi Meyer should have been fined for being a public nuisance for sprinting on a parallel road.
Maybe, yeah. Charles de Prace also this on Wednesday, the one of the many Sprinters World Championships, Tim Merlier absolutely destroyed everybody. Jasper Philipsen, he beat him pretty comfortably. He was second. Moschetti, another good result for Q365, third. Fretin, fourth. Van Poppel, fifth. Anielkowski, sixth. That's a 4-6 for Cofidis. This is all about UCI points here. So they actually take 170 UCI points sprinting with two riders. But yeah, Merlier...
in the dust.
Mate, Picnic is struggling. Really. Yeah, without Jakobsen and even competitive in these sort of races because he's out with the injury, it's really tough for them at the moment. But yeah, that was Charles de Prace. And then we have any other race news from last week, Benji?
Balsamo?
Anyone?
The women's one? Ahead of, I think, Chiara Consoni. I was expecting Consoni to maybe beat her, but Balsamo was just stronger on the line. So congratulations to her to show that. But let's be honest, if Ribes was there, she probably would have won because they all would have ridden to the line with her in Ciel de Praise. But I gotta say, we have this usual format of this podcast, the weekly show, where we're like, okay, race recaps, then news, then race previews. We might add a bit of audience questions in the coming weeks if we don't necessarily have the news for it. Because next week, not necessarily the craziest amount. Well, there's quite a bit of racing actually. But if you have any crazy questions you want to ask us, drop it in the comment section below. Also, very welcome. But we're lacking news, buddy. There's no news because it's all Roubaix related.
I know, yeah. Everyone's talking about, there's a few questions from Twitter, Benji, which we'll get to, but some of them aren't even questions. One, we already apologized to I refused to apologize to Bissiger. Benji did. One says, Benji, can you apologize for disrespecting Wiggins, who finished in the front group in Roubaix?
I will not. Well, first of all, Wiggins did not finish in the front group in Roubaix. He finished in the second and the third group when he was in Roubaix. Yes, in the edition that Terpstra won, he was there with Thomas in the second group. At no point in that race did I think, oh, Wiggins is going to win this race. At no point. No chance. So there were two better sprinters there. There's much better rouleurs in that second group. So I'm not having this shit. This blasphemy. I will not apologize to Bradley here. That is not happening. So question out of the window. Sorry, buddy. What's the next question?
This is a good one that I really want to discuss, especially now that the Cobble Classics have finished and going into the Ardennes. This is from Oliver on Twitter, how can other teams disrupt Pogačar and MVDP in these major classics?
Ooh.
To me, it's very simple.
Very simple. Yeah.
Never pull with them. Unless you're riding for a podium.
I agree. But just to be clear, just saying sit in your wheel is a very vague description. Because at that point, they'll probably end up just dropping you at some point. But I think there's many different ways. As in, step one is trying to get ahead in the race. That's an obvious one. We've seen that numerous times. At this point, it's quite difficult because the teams around MVDP and Pogačar are usually strong enough to control the race when you're ahead. If everyone tries, then there might be an opportunity there. Then later on, try and send even more riders up the road. It's not because you have one rider up the road that you can't have a second one up there, a third one in a third group. The more riders that are up the road, the less teams that are going to ride in the peloton, the more the pressure comes on Mathieu van der Poel's team and Pogačar's team to do something. This is not a dead set strategy, okay, this is going to work, but it ups your chances a little bit. Then, like you say, if you're Pedersen, for example, in E3 and Gunnar in E3, and you've got two teammates in the group behind, maybe don't ride with Van der Poel. That might increase your chances of not getting dropped on the next out of Quadramon and actually having a chance in the race, because you'll have a numerical advantage over one strong rider then, which you're still not the favorite then, but your chances increase. So it's all these small things, you know? It's just a general better fucking tactics, bro.
It's pretty straightforward. Like, accept reality. First of all, like in processing grief or loss, first you have the denial phase. And say in 21 to 23, maybe Van Aert was in the denial phase. Now he's in acceptance. Mads Pedersen is in the denial phase at the moment in the 2025 Classic season. And maybe next year he reaches acceptance. And the acceptance is the reality that these two, and maybe Remco in the Ardennes, are on a different level to everybody else. And the only way you can beat them is to ride absolutely negative. You're good enough to, because Pedersen's good enough to follow them. The first bullet, the second bullet, maybe even the third bullet, but not the last bullet to follow. And you give yourself the biggest chance to, even if your teammates, to win, if you have strong teammates coming back. That's whether that's Jasper Stuyven, whether that's Vacek in Roubaix, etc. And then if that doesn't happen, you still give yourself the biggest chance to win by conserving as much energy as possible so that when they inevitably throw their bomb at you, you are as fresh as possible to respond. And so if Nils Pollard first of all, they're each other's problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw with Vingegaard in the Tour de France last year. Remco attacked on the gravel stage. Vingegaard's like, not my problem. It's a Pogačar problem. And so it's the same. When Pedersen flattered for a reason in Roubaix, by the way. Go and watch the sector Pedersen flattered. Watch his line. And for some reason, Mathieu van der Poel was extremely cautious on that cobble sector, did not go onto the gravel, and took completely different lines to the other two.
Yeah.
And so if Pogačar attacks on that sector on Tilloy, if I'm Pedersen, that's a Mathieu van der Poel problem, not a me problem. I got the best sprint in this group. You two
Correct.
can have your little games. So I think it's just more that attitude, Benji, that, yeah, all the other riders should basically, it's not a nice thing to hear. Of course, no one likes hearing, but the reality is these two are better than the others. And you need to ride in that fashion.
I agree. I think that's the motto of that answer. What other questions do we have? Or
if you want a podium, that doesn't apply. If you want a podium and you get with those two, relay, And then when they drop you in the final, you're still a minute ahead of everybody else.
It's like, I understand why Bissegger's riding because he's securing a top 5 in Roubaix in that 5-man
sure.
group, for example.
He could probably still sit on.
Yeah. So that I see as a scenario there. If you're Pedersen and you want to win and you don't want a podium again, you got to try and do something else. So I agree with your take there. When it comes to other questions, I think there was a one that I actually dove into a little bit last night, which I think it was, how has the current era of cycling changed compared to the Bonen Cancellara days of, let's say, 2006 to 2011-ish, 2012-ish? I think that's the wide range of those two riders' career. And I gotta say, I absolutely loved the Bonen Cancellara battle back in the day. I was highly invested as a kid back then. I was basically 9 to 15 years old during that era, but I was already into the classics for sure during that period. And at first, the first thing that comes to mind about that era is that we always had like multiple years where one of them was injured and the other one ended up winning the classics. That's not always true. I started rewatching last night from 2006 onwards, and the way I feel like cycling classics have changed a little bit if you compare exactly that period towards this one is, it's actually not completely different. The races were still opened relatively early, as in, for example, if you look at RVV 2006, Bonen attacked on the Koppenberg with like 76 kilometers to go, exploded the race. 10 people came together, the likes of Van Petegem, Hinkepie, and so forth, Leif Hoste, all in a group of riders. And then it was on Bonen and Leif Hoste who eventually rode away from that group to the victory. So it was also an early race opening that led to two riders fighting it out to the final. Maybe in modern day cycling, we would see Bonen drop Leif Hoste and make sure he's behind before he gets to the finish line, even though he has the best sprint. In modern day cycling, people just want to finish solo, it seems like. And that's the real change, I would say. There are a lot of like scenarios where Bonen finishes with Leif Hoste, finishes with Alessandro Ballan. Cancellara was more of the solo guy, coming to the line alone in a lot of the races. But in modern day cycling, there's just so many like one-person solos at the end of races. And specifically, the races where one of the riders was not from Bonen and Cancellara. So if Bonen and Cancellara, if one of them was not present, I feel like there were more occasions where it wasn't just a Pogacar doing a 50-kilometer solo to the finish line, a Mathieu van der Poel dropping everyone with 45 kilometers to go. Yes, those existed. Cancellara had relatively long solos, Bonen as well every now and then, but the majority of those races, they still went to the line with one or two riders, whether it was a Filippo Pozzato or whoever. There was still like intensity in the final of those races. And I think we've spoken about this before in another live, Patrick, that quite a few of Bonen's victories in RVV were team-based victories, actually, despite being one of the top classics riders, because Stijn de Volder was on his team at Quickstep and was in a great position where he also benefited, and I think de Volder won the Tour of Flanders twice himself. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah. 2009, 2008. They benefited and cannibalized each other in the process. Or do you think they helped each other win?
I think they helped each. So, but Bonen versus Cancellara to me is like Van der Poel is Bonen, or maybe Van Aert really, but let's compare. And then Pogacar is actually Cancellara. I know they don't look the same, but actually they are similar in terms of how they would have to win.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure physically like much what's changed, but maybe if Cancellara had seen it possible, like Pedersen saw it possible to go solo, and then he does it in Gent-Wevelgem. It looks stupid at the time, and then actually it's the perfect strategy. Maybe Cancellara and his team would have just been like, okay, Bonen's more explosive than you. We're going to make this race as hard as possible because you have a higher threshold than Bonen. And we're going to open it super early. You're a TT world champ 55 times, and you're going to attack him a million times and then make it hard, and then you're going to crack him and go solo. Maybe they would have raced differently with the knowledge of today.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe they're just physically different today, and that's why it's possible. Maybe the equipment... Because to me, what I don't understand is the speeds are higher, and maybe an aero specialist can explain this to me. But what I don't understand is the speeds are higher now, which means you have to push, in theory, to go faster, exponentially more watts. So to me, when someone's solo on the flat and they're having to push 55, why is it harder now seemingly to chase them than when they were pushing 45? Surely the draft advantage is bigger in the group behind nowadays than when they were chasing when they were going 48 k's an hour. Is the answer because the domestiques behind today to catch Mads Pedersen and Gen Wevelgem have to push 57 k's an hour to catch him because he's aero with the skin suit, with the wheels, with the aero bike, and he can ride at threshold at 55 instead of 48 now.
Could it also be that it's, on top of that, also nutrition related? Because in the modern day sport, I feel like we see less and less riders bonking when they're on solo efforts, when they're chasing hard, stuff like that. And back in the day, I vividly remember multiple moments where a rider that was solo ahead completely decapitates himself.
Parkegios.
Yeah, so I feel like we see that less and less, and I feel like nutrition is playing a role in that part. So I think it's a combination of multiple effects, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're right. Like the only time I remember seeing it with the big guys this year was Van der Poel. I would say in RVV he was pretty fucked last Quarmont, and then Poggy in Roubaix was fucked, and Van der Poel. Everyone, to be honest, was fucked.
Yeah.
But then if everyone's fucked, I think it just was a hard race. So yeah, I think maybe the aero stuff I don't understand. I would have thought in theory it's easier to catch solos with higher speeds on average, but maybe that's obviously not correct. Who do you think? Do you think Cancellara in today's also the RVV course was easier, right?
It was different and I think easier. It was a harder version of the current Omloop parcours. Right. It's not exactly how I describe it because Koppenberg was still in there, etc., which is not in Omloop. But the final was Muur van Gerardsberg and Bosberg. So it's actually quite fun looking at those editions from back in the day. I might actually watch all of them at some point in the coming months. That might be a fun thing to do. But it was definitely a different parcours. I'd say the current parcours is more attritional than the previous one, which also made it so that the old parcours might have made it closer together in the final, might have made that there were more riders that had a chance. Maybe the flatter classics riders had more of a chance at RVV, which is not really the real case anymore, I would say, because even a Mads Pedersen needs to be able to climb quite properly now to be able to compete for a race like the Tour of Flanders. And we see that difference in the way that Pogacar actually beats Van der Poel when he competes. So that is notable. One classic, though, that definitely changed was Milano-San Remo, because back then, I swear Ferreira won that like 3 times back in the day, no? In the 2007 era? What, sorry?
Is he a versatile sprinter, though?
Yeah, he was a versatile sprinter, but in the group was Erik Zabel, Alan Davis, Tom Bonen, Robbie McEwen. So Petaki, half of those are not versatile sprinters. So
yeah, but Philipsen won.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, he climbed like a crazy person when he did.
Yeah, but in the modern era, Robbie McEwen would climb well. He would.
Yeah,
he's small. Would. Like, that's the thing. The sprinters would just be generally fitter. And yeah, I'm not sure San Remo changed this year for sure with Poggi going on Cipressa. But you're right. I think back in the day, if the sprinters had to do 6.5 watts per kilo for 10 minutes on Cipressa and then follow on Poggio, they would have all been in the car.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's our thoughts on the classics. It's hard to compare eras because, yeah, obviously everything's era dependent. It's the same in basketball or anything like that. All right, let's look forward to the Ardennes Classics coming up. And we don't have Brabant-Sibale tomorrow. We have it on Friday. Men and women's 125 Ks for the women, 162.5 for the men. My feeling is that this course is easier than last year. My feeling is correct. Last year it was 197 Ks. This year it's 163. This is really a semi-classic now, of like quite a soft route. There's 3 Mosca Strats. and 4 even. I don't know. I can't count. Fuck, how many are there? No, there's 2, 3. Yeah, 3 Moscow Strats. That's where Remco has the trouble. Remco's coming back.
How close is it? I swear, the Leuven World Champs is basically just a wrap together of Brabant Spel and Druivenkoers Overijse, which
with 100 Ks.
we have not spoken about this. This is very sad. Druivenkoers Overijse, Patrick, is no more.
It's Druivenkoers Overijse. I mean, that's what should be the world. I mean, I just saw the announcement that like the Haute Savoie or something is going to have the World Championships in 2027. And it's going to have 6,000 meters elevation gain because that's going to be more exciting. No, it won't. Leuven World Champs was a good race. Druivenkoers is a good race with
well, it's the same parkour.
Exactly. With open racing. Harder doesn't mean more entertaining. Like, yeah. So I would say Druivenkoers should be out and it should be the World Champs course every year. 200K course in Druivenkoers would be sick. It would be.
In Druivenkoers. You think Druivenkoers is a village?
Whatever, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
It means grape race.
Okay. You got vineyards there?
Do we? In Belgium? I don't even know.
Yeah, there's... you do have wine in Belgium. I checked. I did a puzzle on it.
Probably very good.
Jeez, leave you. See, what? Chocolate... bidon throwers and classics riders. That's Belgium's biggest exports at the moment.
Friture, buddy. French fries is our biggest export. Because they're actually Belgian.
Fair enough.
And so is cricket, by the way.
Okay. I'm not sure about that.
I'm dead serious. It was invented in Belgium and then was transported elsewhere. You can believe me or not, but it's true. Okay. Just like golf.
Just like golf, yeah. Rory McIlroy, famous Flemish golfer. Brabant Pale, the biggest news about this is it's the return of Remco. That's what I'm very excited about to see. I assume he'll turn up in good shape. Of course, if it was his first race and it was a stage race, I wouldn't expect Remco to maybe be winning, but a course that's tailor-made for him here where he's been good before, I think Remco will be sharp straight away, and I really can't wait to see how he goes. He's here with Catania. Encorn actually has been good in this race. Hayter too. Binny's on the provisional. Thibaut Del Grosso. Very, very good race for him. I think he'll go far. Paulus in fantastic shape. Wellens, Jan Christian apparently returned. So UAE, very strong team of Vermeersch, Narvaez, who's here for the Ardennes, but had been a bit sick. Christian. Wout van Aert is back. Visma, I think, skipped it last year, but they're back with Van Aert and Benoot. Unfortunately, Zangler is out of the Ardennes after the crash in the Pays Vasco, which sucks for him. And Pidcock apparently here. This is a very nice start list, so I'll be watching this on Friday afternoon for sure. And it'll be an open race, and I think you'll see a very strong group of 15 big guns attacking each other in the final. Exactly.
I'm also looking forward to seeing what Matthias Kopecky can do, a rider on Novo Nordisk, who's been actually pretty good over the last year, like good in those 1.1 races. And Brabant Pijl is not that far off a 1.1 race, despite the start list being a lot better. So there's a lot on the start list that I'm looking forward to. I can't place my finger on this is exactly what's going to happen. I'd like to see a very good Remco Evenepoel, but also not a super dominant one, because I want to see a fight for the victory. Binyam has also actually been pretty good in the last couple of weeks, but it's never really come out in terms of results. So his level's there, but yeah. So technically he should be able to be relatively competitive on this parkour, I would say. But just overall, strong team, strong riders. I'm looking forward to that. And when it comes to the women's Brabant Pijl, it's shorter parkour. You've got 1, 2, 3 Moscow Strats, so the same, right? Just
I think it's the same final.
And that's 125 kilometers in length. And when it comes to the start line, we've got Longa Borghini apparently on the start line.
Yeah.
Preliminary. So that might be fun if she shows up. We've got no voting for Brabant Pijl preliminary, because there's no confirmed team on the women's start list.
I don't trust a lot of these.
Yeah, Kat Ferguson, don't know if she'll show up after her crash at Paris-Roubaix, stuff like that. SD Works might show up with Anna van der Breggen, which that might be her first victory of the season then, yes, if she ends up winning here, which is not a an impossibility, in my opinion. Strong riders overall. Visma with Marianne Vos preliminary on the start list as well.
Falcon on
feel like,
EF.
yes, I feel like I'm missing a team. Where's Canyon Schramm?
Kane Schrammer here with Skalniak Soika. It seems that Neviadoma won't do it, so she'll focus on the 3 Ardennes races, probably Wise. Royak is here. So yeah, it's shabby for FDJ. Suez looks like the leader. And yeah, you can have some Ingveld Gasquien for UnoX, came 3rd in Amstel last year. She's here. So I think it's going to be... Yeah, I think it's going to be Voss and people trying to get rid of Voss is what it looks like to me. And in theory, if Kat Ferguson's healthy, this is a very good race for her. But we don't know if she'll start. So yeah, it's time to move to the Ardennes for them. For Amstel Gold Race, we have a long... Last year, was 253 Ks, but didn't finish with the Kauberg. The Bemmelerberg was the last climb, about 7 Ks from the finish. This year, back to Kauberg as the last climb, 256 Ks. That's 600 meters, 6.7%. And so the Amstel Gold Race, the reason to explain why this is different to the Tour of Flanders and why there's different riders, for example, or why riders like a Teish Benoit or Pogacar are good at both, or whatever, is none of these climbs are cobbled, so they're all tarmac, which is better for the lighter riders. They're on average steeper, the Kreuzberg or the Kauberg or the Gulperberg, and there's some other steep ones as well, the Kreuzberg. And there's just more climbing. There's just way more total altitude gain in this race than, say, even the Tour of Flanders or E3. And that's why you have the Ben Healey's of this world coming to the fore. So, hard race. I would say the pre-final Benji begins 100 Ks to go in that hill zone. And, yeah, which is maybe the first time Kauberg. And then, but yeah, who's here?
Like, who's here is a big question because on paper, Pogacar's still on the preliminary start list. I'm not sure he'll show up. He's just Podium-Roubaix. He might want to focus on LBL as his next big race. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pogacar doesn't end up being on the final start list when it comes to UAE Team Emirates for this race. I do think him being present would change the way this race is ridden, because Pogacar would be a candidate to open the race early, or Pogacar being present in the race might cause certain teams to anticipate relatively early on in the race where they might otherwise be willing to wait until the final of the race. The way the race plays also sort of depends on how Remco Evenepoel races Brabant-Sepel. If he's shit, then he's less of a planned factor for the other team, so they might be less scared of him. If he's amazing and dominant, then they might do their different race strategies accordingly. I am also looking at riders like Maxim van Gils, for example. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe should be pretty good at this at Amstel Gold Race. We've got Matthews at Jayco is not a terrible rider for this. He does end up being in a G2 instead of a G1 in a lot of occasions. Other riders at UAE outside of Pogacar that might have a chance if he doesn't show up. Pogacar, Patrick, who's being unsocial on his phone at the moment. I'm calling you out, buddy. Did you even hear what I said?
I did. You'd ask me about UAE second leaders whilst Mrs. Rouge is sending me an urgent message. I think... Let me just tell you what I think happens in this race, Benji. Ben Healey. Ben Healey's the key to this race. And he's going to open with some other riders like... Is Scaroni here? Where's Christian Scaroni?
No, he's not.
Dude, Pogacar's told Scaroni, he's like told him, please don't turn up. I want to win this one. Everyone's scared of Christian Scaroni. I think all these second tier guys like Pidcock, Hirschi, Alaphilippe, Scaroni, if he's there, Champoussin will jump. I think UAE will put in McNulty, Kristen, Narvaez into that group. I think the group will not cooperate so well because the UAE will sit on. And then I think Pogacar will bridge across or drop a bomber. I think Remco will. And then the race will get opened up again like 2023. And then they'll work, maybe cooperate. They'll get round to the last 45 Ks to go. And then Poggy will start throwing haymakers and we'll see if Remco can follow.
Yes. Yes. I'll accept that. Who's going to win? Thibaut Nys has a chance?
Yeah, Thibaut Nys. I mean, very strange Basque Country performance in that he was not competitive on the stages we thought he'd be competitive on. He looked terrible. Well, not terrible, but I was like, where is he? And then on the final hardest Queen stage, he was in the lead group with Schelmoser and the GC guys when literally all the GC guys got dropped. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I don't know what to expect. If there's anyone who has the talent to follow, it is Thibaut Naes. So it would be really exciting if Thibaut Naes is like steps to Remco and Pogacar and you have another guy on that level in these sort of races would be great.
I also like the idea of Foss, Laurence, a couple of Sheffield at Ineos playing a bit of
they're going to jump
a multiple rider strategy game. That is also something I'm looking forward to. No Del Grosso on the start line right now for Alpecin de Koning. Are you surprised?
Yeah, I am.
He's Dutch. Illegal.
He's Dutch. It's the biggest Dutch race of the year, and he is maybe their best rider for it, right? Outside of Van der Poel.
Arjen Lewijn's top 10 incoming.
Possible, yeah. Usually that's always the Lotto MO. They always Van Hills and then Berkmoes. No, not Andreas Krohn top 10 this before with Lutsenko. I remember them scrapping over who's pulling in 23. So yeah, Lotto with a double top 10 is pretty par for the course for them. And Simone, I think we have to just go with the hot hand. Simone Velasco, third. Wins the sprint behind Pogacar solo, Remco on 45 seconds, Simone Velasco on 1:50, wins sprint behind. Book it.
I'm saying top 10, but I don't see the victory yet.
You know, he came 8th in País Vasco GC.
He came 8th in Miguel Indurain. So for me, you got to be podium there to podium Amstel.
Yeah, fair enough. Indurain's a positioning descent gimmick race.
The climb before did not matter, right?
Yeah, no. You got to have a good descent. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, especially if there's anyone that can maybe follow Pogacar. I feel like we've never seen... Am I misremembering, or we've not seen Remco, Pog actually both healthy in the Ardennes go head-to-head, or has it happened and Pog just won?
Again, you're assuming that Pogacar starts Amstel.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he starts. Because, yeah, it depends how he recovers. I also don't think UAE were lying when there was no decision on Roubaix for weeks and weeks and weeks. There was no decision. Pogacar wanted to do it. They didn't want him to do it. Eventually, he got to do it. I think for Amstel, he does Roubaix. How do you feel after Roubaix, Pogacar? Do you want to do Amstel? I'm a bit sore. I'll prepare optimally for Liège. Okay, but he's out.
Machin was bullshitting when he said, we just decided over breakfast in the off-season.
I saw some crazy stuff in the Italian press that like managers were getting involved, and so I'm not sure it was like so easy a decision to be honest. But no, it's if he feels good and wants to do it, he'll do it. If he doesn't, he won't.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, they got McNulty, Narvaez, and a really good team anyway. So
talking about
East.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to go to women's Amstel.
Yeah, same. Looking at good teams, SDRX is sending Kopecky and Van der Breggen preliminary, so no confirmed start list yet to the race of Amstel Gold Race, perhaps with Lorena Wiebes as well, who should have won last year's Amstel, but decided to celebrate too early, if you remember, when Vos ended up winning as a consequence, coming just past her with a good time jump. Vos is also on the start line on paper together with the likes of Van Empel, who has not had a great road racing last 1.5 years, I would say. Ferran Prevot, winner of Roubaix, also present. Victoria Schladnova is also... Is that how you pronounce it?
Schladnova, yeah.
Schladnova, okay, with a K of... I don't know what words start with a K in English. Anyway, we've got next to those two teams also Demi Vollering, who is arguably... is she the favorite for Amstel? Oh.
It's a much harder course than last year. So last year, Lorena Wiebes was going to win and then celebrated too early. And Vos bike throw nailed her on the line.
Yeah.
But that was 40 Ks less. The race was like... The race is like 40% longer this year with much harder climbs. That's advantage Vollering. And so...
Yeah, but...
Or those type of riders, rather.
And on top of the because like 158 kilometers was the length last year. It's all still but it was because of the issues on course that led to the reduction of the parkour, right?
Yeah. It wasn't planned to be 100 Ks. It happened that way. But Finn Van Empel's not doing it, by the way. But
Okay.
That to me makes it more a Blanca Vash, Bredevold, Kopecky, and Van der Breggen race than a Wiebes race. I will laugh a lot if they somehow try to race for Wiebes again, like they did in Roubaix. I think the writing should be on the wall now that it's Kopecky and Van der Breggen who should be in these harder races leading. And it's also good for Niewiadoma that it indeed is longer. The shorter race with less punchy climbs is not good for her win probability. I think.
Noemi Rug, I like.
Yeah, Noemi Rug looks good. She's been good all year. Lippert looks good.
I hope Cavalli is good. She was solid at Sanremo.
Yeah, Cavalli looks better this year. We've also, EF, it's not just Rug, it's also Christian Faulkner, Valiers has been good in this sort of racing before. Also live a little bit Jayco. Yeah, and Roseman Gannon and Anderson have been good in the Ardennes.
Reusser and Movistar, Lippert, like you mentioned, like these are Longoborghini. We can't forget about her either at UAE Team ADQ. Like there's a lot of good riders on the start line here. So shall we do an early pick for this race? I feel like we should, because there's actually like a lot of people on the start line here. So
I think
I'm going with. What? Sorry.
I think Vos wins.
I don't believe that. I think she gets dropped on the final Calberg. And we will see Niewiadoma losing the sprint to...
no. Don't do that to Cassia.
She loses a sprint, I'm sorry. Who's got a bit of a sprint after that? Lippert's got an okay sprint, but not crazy.
Lippert's going to go early. Lippert's going to lead everybody out. You know it.
Yeah. Is it weird that I expect Kopecky to climb better this year because the Tour de France Femme is on her menu as a GC goal?
I'm not convinced by Kopecky, honestly.
I see that as a problem.
Yeah, and so...
But there's a team there that if Anna van der Breggen's at the front and doesn't ride, Kopecky might come back. But
I'm not convinced she's like much better than Vos at the moment. I could be wrong, but... Yeah.
Should we have already named Vollering by now?
Demi also been riding weird. Like, Omloop was weird. I'm not convinced, like, that she's not going to make the team do weird stuff again. I think if you jump ahead, you can create problems for FDJ. And then I've realized, I don't know who's going to win exactly, Benji. I think, it could be a small group sprint, could be won by a lot of number of riders. This is round 10 of Vollering against Kopecky. Weird dynamics.
Yeah.
And I think if you're any other team, you got to try and profit from that.
I think Longoborghini wins because she's the type of rider that will attack after the Calberg finishes from like a 7-rider group and win the race.
Okay, I think that's probably the right answer.
You can't just steal my answer.
No, I'm still sticking with Vos, but I can really see what you're saying.
Okay.
Tomorrow, there's the Ronde van Limburg, which is actually somewhat confusingly in Belgium. There's a Limburg in Belgium, and of course in the Netherlands. It's still a hilly race with a few cobbled uphills, but not that hard. And we have some good riders here indeed, even though it's a 0.1 race. We've got Biniam Girmay, great race for him. Bratin for Cofidis. Caden Groves for Alpecin.
Ooh.
Albert Philipsen, Söderqvist, and Schoens for Little Trek. That's a very nice team. I'm keen to watch how they perform on TV tomorrow. Milan Menton for Lotto. Where's Alpecini? I already said. Groves and Kielich.
I reckon Groves wins.
I'm going with Jakob Söderqvist solo.
Ooh.
I think he wins his first pro race.
I like the idea. Like, a lot of these teams are not like confirmed, so it's very possible that Söderqvist doesn't even show up. But we don't know that. I guess we'll find out on the day itself. There's also a couple of 1.1 races in France. We've got Classique Grand Besson due on, guessing Friday maybe, Tour de Jura maybe Saturday, and Tour de Doux Sunday. Pure guess at this point. They all finish on an uphill finish. I have no clue who's there.
Oh no, dude, they
'cause-
changed it.
Well, what?
Yeah, they changed Tour de Doub. It's now like a hard hill, like 30 k's from the finish or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because
They
Bini
finish
won
on
that.
flat
Bini won
Porto.
that race when he was on Delco like 4 years ago, and still no one gave him a World Tour contract. Imagine today a rider on Delco level team coming like third in La Guelia against fucking Ayuso.
And
And
not
it was
just
like-
any rider.
It's he's Eritrean. The passport could be difficult. It's like, are you serious? He's 20.
Yeah.
He beat Remco. I mean, credit to Iker Wiesbeek and to Marche Want. He has to be said again. Credit to him.
Yep.
I got distracted.
Me too. I have no clue what we're talking about.
The start lists don't look so strong for these races. Last year, Lenny Martinez was and
Bro.
Gaudu.
It's your community group of children.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Braz Afonso.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Visma team. 'Cause that's also true. It's also true. But yes, it's my community of God, I'm not being mean, but fuck me. Some of the names on the FDJ, Maximilian Cushway, who's making up these names? Yes, we have Brooke Roland. He's actually not that small, but he's pretty good. We got Clement Braz Afonso. He was actually doing. Wait, he's 25. He was actually doing well in some of the Basque
Wait.
Country breakaways. He's in good shape.
Is there a max age for your group? No, because otherwise you wouldn't be invited anymore.
No. It's not age dependent. It's how small you are. Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is the battle of the smalls, not just on Group Armour, but also, yeah, we have Timon Kraat and Jürgen Nordhagen at Visma, Victor Lefay, Clément Berthet at Decathlon. That's a good team. Simon Kier and Emmanuel Buchmann and Sylvain Monique at Cofidis.
Magnus Kort. At Tour de Doub. Never mind.
Tour de Doub, that makes sense. And that's he'll be favourite for that race because, as I said, it's a flat finish. But the earlier ones are too hard for him. Tobias Johannesson might be the favourite, I would say, given his Milano-Torino performance for the 2 uphill finishes on the first 2 days. Adrien Mer is in good shape for Unibet Tietema Rockets. But indeed, it's mostly French, the French Conti teams and some pro teams. Who is from Burgos? David Delgado, skinny by name, skinny by nature, as well as Mario Aparicio is a good climber, and Jose Manuel Diaz for Burgos. But indeed, the names are saying that is why you send your young climbers to try and get a result at this sort of race.
Bro, Emmanuel Buchmann at Cofidis still hurts my eyes, and he has looked like shit this year.
Wasn't he good in?
Well, define good.
I swear I saw him attacking
pedal.
somewhere. I think he attacked on La Molina with Koos around that phase.
Yeah, but he finished 25th.
Anyway,
Not
Cofidis,
bad, but
Cofidis
you're
are
not
going
good.
for a quadruple top 10. Buchmann, Carr, Herrada, and Monique, they want all 4 in the top 10. They need points. There's no picnic here. There's no Astana here. Because they're at the Ardennes. Cofidis, they're desperate for the points here. Where's Kevin Vauquelin? Oh, he's in the Ardennes. That's also why the start list is so weak, because even if you're Astana,
Yeah.
you better send your points to In Brabant and Amstel, your point scorers. Anyway, that's the racing this weekend. A lot of hilly racing as we transition towards, as we have the Ardennes. So that'll be what's our next pod, Benji? Sunday Amstel.
I think so too.
Sunday
Bit of
Amstel
a
will
chill
be back
week.
with the recap of that. Chill week. Then we'll have the weekly show Monday and Flesh on Wednesday week. Hope you enjoyed our weekly show brought to you by Join Cycling as always. And we'll see you on Sunday afternoon. Until then, ciao, ciao.